Okay, so it's episode number 29 of Arcadian Insight. If you usually come here for the news, I apologize. No trending news today because we have a very, very special guest. It's NotParadox. If you are here, you probably already know who that is. But if you don't know who that is, NotParadox is a really, really big creator and one of my personal favorite creators in the Heroes of the Storm space. We just talked about this Paradox, but I've watched a ton of your stuff, even like some of your early videos from a year ago. But thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. Honestly.
Oh yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It's funny because I didn't know you guys had a podcast. But one of my favorite videos that I've actually shared with a bunch of people is that orc video you guys did.
Oh, the Orc Brothers.
Orc Brothers, yeah. It's so funny. I was
so
concerned because you guys were talking. You're like, "Oh, there's no female orcs." I'm like, "What about the Joanna skin?"
Yeah, right. That's really funny. I didn't know that you had seen that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I really just wanted to start just talking about you for a little while, just before we dive into Heroes of the Storm. And really just what made you interested in creating videos on YouTube to begin with, and why you started with Huts and what attracted you to that game the most.
So it's gonna sound kind of weird. I actually had multiple other YouTube channels before this one, and a lot of them I had just different random projects for them, and they didn't really go anywhere. So now I've been working in marketing for like 8 years, and I got this project from this large training company, and they were like, "You need to write this book that replaces another book," and the book was like making money online, right? And I already did a ton of research on this, so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna write this whole book." So I wrote this entire book, and when I finished it, I was like, "You know what? I'm not gonna give this book to them." I was like, "This isn't what I want them to have." I said, "I put a lot of effort into this, and I don't want a company to just sell it as me being the ghostwriter." So I didn't really do anything with that other than consultations, and then I wanted to start back up a YouTube channel just for fun, right? And I mostly only played Heroes of the Storm. I was just gonna do like montages. And then I was watching Kala, and he was doing all these coaching things, and I was like, that seems like so much fun to just be able to like coach people. But on YouTube, you kind of need to have it like just straight coaching is kind of a weird thing, because people don't really want to watch like a 2.5 hour coaching session where 90% of the stuff isn't relevant to them. It's relevant to the person in the video. So they want to be able to read a title and go, "That's what I want to watch." So I started doing that, where it was like I think the series I started with really like pushing was 4 mistakes, right? The 4 mistakes you make on Kael'thas, the 4 mistakes you make on whatever. Because then if you wanted to play that hero, you want to find out, do I make those mistakes? And if you don't, you feel happy, and if you do, you learn something.
Well, that specifically that Kael'thas one, and sorry to interrupt you, but I actually watched that, and using the trait on the W to conserve mana in the laning phase instead of using it on the Q. I mean, I always just use it on the Q. I was like the biggest idiot when it came to Kael, and as soon as I started using it on the W, I won like every single game that I played on him. It's such a big difference.
It's huge. It's honestly huge. So that's kind of where the whole thing started. Was I wanted to test out to see if anything that I did the research on would work at all, and at the same time, it's a game I love. It's a game I enjoy. And I was watching that call, and I just kind of shoved everything together, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to post a video every other day. I'm not going to look at my views. I'm not going to look at my subscribers. I'm not going to look at anything for the first couple months. And because I don't want to be discouraged, but I also don't want to if it does go well, I don't want to get like too in my head. So I just didn't look at a single number, and I posted videos every other day. And I did that for about 3 months, and when I came back, I want to say I had like 3,000, 4,000 subscribers, and I was like, oh wow, like this actually could be a thing. Like this is crazy. Sorry to
interrupt you. I really like that approach, man. Just do it. You had a plan, do it, and then it just happened to be successful. That was, I mean, well, there's a reason behind why it's successful, but it's just, I like that approach with not worrying about numbers or anything like that.
Yeah, because the channel I had before was a full channel dedicated like psychology connected to gaming, and I still do psychology in a lot of my videos. But that was like the entire intent of that other channel, and I was so focused on the numbers that like even if I had a good video and it got a decent amount of views, I was like, the next one, if it didn't get as many views, I was like immediately discouraged and I didn't want to do anything. So yeah, it really worked for me. Will it work for other people? I have no idea. Maybe you get more inspired by seeing numbers. I'm not really sure. It worked for me. And now I'm more than 10 times the amount of subscribers that I was excited about 3 months after I started. So yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I wanted to bring up next is that, I mean, you've been able to reach, you're sitting like right around 41,000, 42,000 subs on your Paradox channel right now, which was only in a year's time, which I mean, I think is like really, really fast growth, especially nowadays on YouTube. It's so hard to get noticed and to gain traction. And who knows, whenever we release this, like a week and a half down the road, maybe you'll be sitting at like 50 or 100,000. Who knows? Here's the hoping.
Right.
But how have you seen your content evolve and mature over time? Like, do you find that you're like a lot more professional now, or making videos is easier?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's parts that have gotten much better and there's parts that have gotten much worse. And I will say that some things, like because of some things that I realized are like musts, like making thumbnails and stuff. When I started immediately, like I wasn't doing thumbnails, I wasn't doing anything like that. And I realized that was kind of something you had to do. And then the descriptions, like you have to add in those, the tags, you have to make sure all of those are good. And it's like, once you get better at that, it does take more time to do it. And you need to make sure that it's all good, because you can't just go with like something basic anymore. All that has to adapt, which takes more time. And then that kind of makes it to where I feel like, I guess another way to look at this is like, there are things that you can spend a lot of time on that won't get views, and you feel like you never need to do that again. And so in some ways, my content might be getting a little bit less edited in areas that people still enjoy the content. Like when I make videos for like just a basic like why, or the 4 mistakes videos usually had a script, while the videos that are just like, hey, there's this hero, we're just doing a 20-minute video talking about the gameplay, like those never have a script. But those tend to go really, really well. So it's like, in some ways my content's gone down in quality, but at the same time, it's like it's the same. It's just that I haven't tried to improve it at all. It's just that people like it. In other senses, I am doing like more research. I'm trying to find out what people want to see more, and I'm trying to bring that out. So the quality, or the content's been a little bit more few and far between, because I'm like looking at what people are looking for, rather than like the map guides, for example. Like a lot of people ask for them, but no one ever really watched them. So I still want to make sure I have the map guides out, and I want to try to keep them updated, but I'm not going to like go and update them every other week. I want to make sure that people are seeing like new heroes that are coming out. I want to make sure I have a new video for new hero. If ever there's a buff or a nerf, I want to make sure to do a video on that. If for whatever reason one hero just starts getting popular all of a sudden, even if there's no changes, I want to make sure there's a video on that, so people know all of that. And then like I've scheduled out videos for a couple weeks, and I've been trying to do something new on each of them, where every hero that I mention, I'm going to start mentioning like a hero that works well with that hero, because I find the majority of us play with friends. So it's like every single person I talk to, I rarely see people queue alone. And so I'm like, maybe if I start adding like heroes that work well with each other, people have more fun, because not only will it inspire one person to play the hero that plays that, or that watches that video, who plays that hero, but now it's going to inspire someone to be like, oh, like I believe I did it in the recent Diablo video with Lightning Breath. I said it works really well with Entomb, with Leoric. So maybe I might be able to encourage a Diablo player to be like, oh, hey, you want to try to learn Leoric, get Entomb, and we'll breath while they're stuck in Entomb. And that was kind of my hope, was to see if we can encourage people with that. So I know that was a way longer answer than what you're expecting, but the content I'm doing research on, and like I also have other paths that I'm planning on going into. I mean, I still want to be making HOTS videos as long as people want to watch HOTS, but I've got all these other random things that I've been messing around with, and I'm trying to get better at editing as well. So that's another reason why it's been kind of longer in between videos, is because I've been messing around with editing like random projects to see what I can do, what I can't do, what's worth it, because the time aspect's also another problem. Is I'm kind of busy. A lot of people don't know I work a full-time job. I'm also a full-time student, and I'm trying to do YouTube. And then when YouTube, if I can't play the game enough to do YouTube, then I can't do YouTube either. So I still have to play the game enough. So it takes a lot of time. So it gets difficult to do like editing, like a lot of editing, because I need to be able to get everything done quickly, especially when I want to have a lot of content for Heroes, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be such a challenge just being a solo creator. I think that we run into the same problems, and we have a team of people, and we're not all students. Ben just went back to school, but I mean, it's a crazy amount of time. I think the editing is definitely the main portion. Adam, you can probably speak to that, but I just can only imagine being one person trying to have a consistent schedule of quality content.
It can get a little tricky. Sometimes I'll get, like, if I can get a series, I tend to do better with a series. Like, I find that's just works better for me, where if I run out of ideas for a bit, I just go back to one of my series, like when I had Why the Pros Play, or 4 Mistakes, or the 100 to 0. I just need to look at something and go, all right, I ran out of ideas. Let's go back. 100 to 0. I just scroll down the roster and I go, all right, what like which one of these can I do something with, right? Is there 100 and 0 that's reasonable in a build that you actually run? Like, I was playing White Mane on a brawl, and I walked up and I 100 to 0 to Hanzo, but I'm also in a build that I would never play. So it's like, do I really want to make a video encouraging people to play a build that I personally would never play, even if it does have a 100 to 0 combo? And it's like, no, I just did that for a brawl. So then I have to scroll past that one and look for another one and go.
If you put out a 100 to 0 White Man video, I'd be clicking on that like immediately.
I mean, I could. It's close to the build that I use. You don't even use your ult, which is kind of nice. But yeah, I mean, I literally dropped a Hanzo, and then he messaged me after the thing, and he's like, "You're crazy," and it was just funny. He's just like, "You're crazy." I was like, I don't know what to say. But yeah, it's
it was Ben.
Yeah, I would message him like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, it's and it was just funny too, because we literally, I want to say they just had wiped everyone but me, and we took out like 3 of their members, and they just had, it was like, I want to say they had Hanzo and Lunara that were left, and they were both running up to me. 100 to 0 the Hanzo, and Lunara just walked away. And I was like, I would too.
Nope, that next time.
Yeah.
But let's jump into Heroes of the Storm here. I'm really excited. I think we all are, to get some of your opinions on just sort of the state of the game and just what you think, like how the meta is, just I think everything. But I really wanted to start with one of the biggest events that has occurred in the game's lifespan, and that's the removal of the professional competitive scene, the official competitive scene from Blizzard, along with the moving away of some of the devs, like back in December 2018. And I really wanted to avoid bringing this up at the start, because I don't want this conversation around the game to be super negative the entire time. I think it's a game that the 5 of us definitely love. I don't think that we'd be making content around it or having this conversation if we didn't. But I do think it's important to start here, because I think that it's affected the game so much so that it can't be avoided. So I guess, Paradox, just to start with you, just to get your opinion, what do you think the impact of Blizzard's decision was, and how do you feel that HOTS has changed since that announcement?
Well, I'll start out with the bad, and I will say that, I mean, as something like that, there's a lot more bad than good. The big challenge is, I think most content creators, most pros, most everyone agrees that the announcement was terrible, but what made it worse was how they handled it. And I think ditching a pro scene is something that is inevitable for many games, where they're worried that the pro scene isn't making them as much money, or the pro scene it's just costing them too much, or a variety of other causes. It's kind of inevitable. What killed it was that right after the announcement of the drop of the pro scene, they said that they also were going to reduce the size of the team itself. And I think if they would have said, hey, you know what, the pro scene costs us $9 million to run, and we're going to take that $9 million and throw it into production and see what we can do, and if that doesn't work, worst case, we get a whole bunch of new content in the game, whole bunch of new skins, whole bunch of new characters, whatever, and we'll go back to having a pro scene and slow back down the production. But instead, they're like, hey, we're ditching the pro scene, and also we're going to drop production as well. And the challenging part about this is that this really didn't have anything to do with whether the game was profitable or not. I actually talked to some people, and there was also the leak that came out. There was a Blizzard finance leak that came out and said that in one quarter, Heroes of the Storm in 2018, I believe it was the first quarter 2018, made $33 million in profit. Now, I don't know, again, it's a leak. Who knows what that actually entails? What does that actually mean? Is that true? I don't know. It was a leak. That's all I saw. But that's profit. Now, I did talk to someone at Blizzard when I visited a while back, and he said that Heroes of the Storm was never in the red. They always were making profit. And he said most likely the decision to drop the competitive scene was purely just because they were losing a lot of money in the stock market. And we all remember that time they lost 60% of their value that weekend right before they dropped it. It was the weekend before BlizzCon, actually. They lost like 60% of their value. And a lot of people got hit. Apple lost like 40%. That same time they lost like $400 billion or something crazy. And it's like everyone's getting hit, and I think they just told their shareholders, like, hey, don't worry about the hit. We've got one whole game. We can just there goes the production of that. We don't need to worry about that anymore. And I think that's where that came from. As far as how it's going to impact the game, having a competitive game without a competitive scene is not great. And I think that's where everyone in the community tried to come together. And we had Heroes Lounge, we have NGS, we have Heroes Hype. We still have so many prize tournaments that if you're in the top of the top, you're making the same amount of money you were making before. The challenges for everyone who is in like those like level, or like I would say mid-tier areas that we're still making a salary from Blizzard, because if you guys didn't know, HEC teams used to make $20,000 per person a year, and well, 10K is split anyways, so 10K every 6 months. And so they're not making that anymore, but at the same time, it's like the rest of the game is doing okay. That's the thing that's kind of scary, is like the announcement part hurt the game more than the actual change initially, because queue times are still pretty quick for most people. I mean, I was even like last season, I was really high MMR, and people were like, oh, well, the highest MMRs don't get games. And it's like, I would click play and I'd get a game in like 3 minutes. I'd go click on like Fan's stream, who is like Grandmaster number 2 or whatever, and he clicks it and he gets a game, and I'm like, I don't know at what point. I'm coaching this guy in bronze, he clicks play, he gets a game. It's the full spectrum, we get games. So I just don't know that side. As far as balance changes, I feel like since the pro scenes dropped, I mean, here's the good side anyways. I feel like since the pro scenes dropped, we get crazier balance changes. Like almost every balance patch we get, well, maybe they're a little bit fewer and far between. I feel like before, balance changes were like maybe just a tiny drop off a couple of the meta heroes, and that was about it. We're getting balance changes that, I mean, I remember my old balance patch videos where I was explaining everything that was happening were like maybe 5 to 10 minutes to explain, like, oh, a new rock's getting, some of them I didn't even think it was worth it. It's like, oh, Diablo got like 1 second off of his charge cooldown. It's like, okay, whatever. But now our balance patches they're huge. I mean, like a third of the roster is mentioned in every balance patch now. And it's crazy because there's such a huge shift of meta every time. And I think they couldn't do that in the pro scene, because if they did a giant buff to a specific hero, you have to look at that and go, well, one of the pros is going to abuse that. Like Chen, for example, right? He just got a rework, and I go and I was casting Heroes Hype Europe for a while, and like he was permanently banned in Europe. And it's like, if the entire HEC was going, that rework would have never happened. because it's just like it was
Yeah,
too
that's
much
true.
too suddenly. It would have never have happened.
It's funny you said that about like the meta changing a little bit, and I feel like, you know, when you compare Heroes of the Storm, I like to compare it a lot to League of Legends, like their pro scene and things like that. As far as I feel like League of Legends pro scene really influenced the meta a lot. You know, what direction people were going with what they were playing. Like, you saw someone do something cool like in a league game, like everyone was doing it the next day. Do you think we see as much change now that, like, that, you know, more formal professional league is gone?
I do think that we see. I apologize so much. I had a this is gonna sound so bad. I had a stream that was paused and they just raided someone, and now I was like hearing it all in my ears because I had all my notes up, so I'm like trying to find the stream because I didn't even have that tab up. So I am so sorry. Could you please repeat that question? I just closed it. It was like, I'm not like watching a stream in the middle of this. I was like paying attention. I was talking all that. I had my notes.
It's all good, man.
Good lord. Has that ever happened? Does that happen to you guys where you just pause like a stream and you like leave it on a tab?
You're lurking.
Well, like you pause it and you leave it on a tab.
Oh.
Maybe I just have a tab problem because like I usually have like 40 tabs up at any given time. But anyways, could you please repeat that?
Yeah. So it was just, I mean, I guess it was just basically comparing League and HOTS here. I feel like a lot of people look to the professional scene in League for meta changes and things like, you know, what are the pros doing? And you can get some pretty like wacky builds and things out of that. You know, if someone sees something interesting, they're doing it the next day, like in solo queue and stuff. Do you think, you know, there's as much meta change since like the professional league is dissolved?
So yes, I'll use Alarak as the best example of this. Alarak had one real build, right? He had one build before he was played in the competitive scene. He had one build, right? It's Q build. Almost every single Alarak went the same exact build every single time with slight variations. Level 1, maybe they changed up something, but normally it was level 1 they went the E talent, level 2 they went the Q, or level 4 they went the Q talent.
Yep.
And pretty straightforward. Almost everyone with that same build. Alarak was a major feast or famine hero, where if you got your Q stacked early, if you got a couple kills and you had sadism, you pretty much just stomped from that point on, and there was like nothing anyone could really do about it. But then if you died early and didn't stack your Q fast enough, you were just a dead weight in your team. And he was never really used in competitive. He was never really used. And then out of nowhere, Rich pulls him out, and Rich is like, you know what? We're going to go E-build, full E-build all the way down. I'm not kidding you. A week after he did that, people would be trashed for going Q build. And if you didn't go E build, that's it. And it was a week later. So yes, the competitive scene did influence builds by a lot. And then when the competitive scene was gone and they nerfed E build, and they buffed W build completely in 3 different ways, that's where the strange thing starts happening, where people don't really know anymore. And there's no one place you can look that says this is the be all end all build. I make a video that W build's better now, and half the people switch to W build, the other half are still on E build. And you can look at like what we have as a competitive scene, and you can see that yes, W build has kind of gone over it. We don't have like a one HGC we can look at and go, okay, every build being used in here is the best build because these people are playing 10 hours a day. They know all the builds. We don't have that anymore. So there's even times where I've seen people that are like, you'll have a random like low rank, high level Alarak that'll see like a Heroes Hype game, and he'll go, yeah, but I'm a better Alarak than them because they're not actually pros. They're just like grandmasters. It's like they're not actually they don't play Alarak as much as me. They're just playing him because of this. And it's like you have a lot more debate now, and in some cases that's really good. Like the pros were doing things for very specific reasons, and if you couldn't emulate the reason they were doing that, like one of my biggest gripes is like W build Hanzo for a long time. Like people would all go W build Hanzo, but they didn't like play it the way the pros played it. So it's like you would have been better off going Q build. And so there is good times to have debate, but at the same time, debating almost could go endlessly now because there's no clear cut where it's like, well, in this situation, Rich used this, and in this situation, Rich used this. Here, let's talk about it. Then now it's just like an endless, I like this, I'm gonna go this. And so there's pros and cons to it, certainly. I mean, as someone who doesn't always go the pro build, because I like to see what else is out there, what other situations, other things might be good. I think it's fun to have that like openness, you know.
That Hanzo W build's really funny. Yeah, it's really easy to watch the pros and click the right talents when you're playing. It's a little bit different to actually play the character the right way. I found that out the hard way a couple times.
And the other tricky part about that particular build and why Hanzo kind of bothers me sometimes when like HGC players will play him is they don't realize that like their damage numbers will be super high because their W hits a bunch of targets. The problem is that all that damage is spread out. So it's so easy to heal back up and you're not actually killing anyone. Like I played for a long time with this one particular Hanzo player, and I played Diablo, and he would always go W build, and it worked really well because we knew exactly what to do. I'd slam him against a wall, and then he'd fire off a W at the wall that I slammed him to, and it always bounced right before, so it hit him with every single arrow. Well, with just a Diablo slam and a W, you can kill almost any hero in the game. And that's like the real potential of Hanzo W build. What people think is like, if they're just playing Hanzo W build and seeing big numbers, I think they're doing really well. But if I'm playing like a Lucio or a Stukov and you're just doing tickle damage to everyone, I don't care if you're top in the charts, you're not killing anyone. And it's like, that's the hard part about it, is there's a lot of like those weird things where people feel like they're doing good. I don't know. It's tricky. It's definitely tricky. There's a lot of those builds that like why people play them is not what you think.
Yeah, we'll get. I got one thing, and then we'll get centered back to the main question there. But that's one of the reasons that I really like HOTS is there's so much fluidity, and you can go a different route in the talent tree, and it's not in other games. If you build a different item like Dota or League, for instance, and it could screw you, totally.
Yeah.
It seems like HOTS is so much more forgiving, and that's why I've always liked HOTS, is because you can experiment and put a point in a different talent and kind of go with it. And sometimes it's successful, and especially when you're looking at other team makes and everything like that, it's really about the team that you're playing against and with.
I think it kind of makes you feel like you're playing a different hero at times too. Like picking a different alt completely changes the way that you play your hero and the way the team fights play out, which is such a huge thing. And even like a character like Alexstrasza, like if you're playing the Q build Alexstrasza, you play it so much differently than if you were building W or something. And you could say that almost about any hero.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And like there's there are a lot of different situations. Like Diablo is one of my favorite. Is like Q build versus W build plays absolutely completely different, to the point that they feel like different heroes. And I feel like some other games almost try to push you away from that. Like I used to play League of Legends when like you can do ability power like Master Yi and ability power Scion, and then they reworked both of those out
a long time ago.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why? Like those were just, if they were overpowered, nerf them. I'm like, but they were different, they were unique. And like in HOTS, I feel like you can go like weird stuff sometimes in the right situations. Like Arthas, for example, like most people always go like the same couple builds where it's just like very simple, but there's like an auto attack Arthas build that I like to pull out every once in a while that people don't really think about. And it's kind of fun in the bruiser space, where if you're going against a lot of melee heroes and you're already supposed to be near them just to slow all their attack speed, it's like, might as well just be attacking really fast and just take them all out. And it's like, it's fun because it plays way different than tank Arthas. So that is definitely a fun part about HOTS.
Did you was that one of your videos, the Arthas auto attack video?
I don't know if I've done a video
the Frostmourne Hungers, because I was just curious.
I did a Q one,
and then I started doing it in the solo lane.
Yeah, I don't think I did that one. In the solo lane, I was telling people to go Q build, where like you toss your death coil out and then it comes
Yeah,
back
yeah,
and
yeah.
heals you and all that. And I think I was encouraging that. But like against like a Artanis or something, like, or if it's a map that you don't need to win the solo lane, but they just have a lot of melee. Like I've done that a couple times where they'll pick like Greymane, Artanis, and then like for whatever reason, like I don't know, a couple other just auto attackers, and you're just like, all right, let's just go Arthas and walk through your team, just auto attack a bunch. It's just fun.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about like quite often on this show, and I mean just like between each other off the air as well, but is why HOTS never reached the popularity level like Dota 2 and League did. Especially the competitive scene. And you know, like we had Mike Morheim come out, like I think it was like a month or two ago, and he said that he pretty much attributed the, I guess, failure, I don't want to say failure because I think the game is still successful, but failure to those high standards, to, you know, releasing too late into an already saturated market. And I think that that's something that we've all agreed with for the most part. But what other factors do you think that HOTS ran into, maybe just like differences between it and League and Dota, that you can see that maybe held it back a little bit?
I mean, I think there's an approach that I like to use an example, and I know this is a different genre, but I don't know if you guys have ever played Warframe. Warframe, when it initially released, was a really, really bad game. I mean, like every bit of it was clunky. You could only use abilities, like you didn't have any sort of ability regeneration, so you could only use abilities like twice throughout the entire dungeon because the energy pool things were so rare. There was like energy to your attack, so you could only auto attack so many times in like a matter of 10 seconds, and then like it was pretty much like twice every 10 seconds. And you're supposed to be like a space ninja that's hopping around and doing crazy stuff, but you had energy tied to everything that you did. And so they brought this game out, and like nobody liked it. Like very few people liked it. So they didn't spend a lot of money marketing it. Instead, they just worked with their people that they did have, and they're like trying to fix up everything. And the second that people said like, you know what, this is pretty good now, then they started marketing, then they started doing everything. And I think Blizzard did it the opposite. Right. They brought out their game, and when they threw all their marketing out at it, it was a 6.5 out of 10 game. Right. And now when it gets reviews, it's always like 9s and 10s, you know, it's like 8.8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. And it's like, this game's finally in a, like right after 2.0, it was an amazing polish. It was, they had a ton of things for a variety of people. It was great for new players. But they didn't spend like any money on marketing when 2.0 was a great opportunity. All they did was kind of did cross promoting with their other games and put it on the BattleNet launcher. But it's like, I can't go on Facebook without getting a Hearthstone ad, without getting a League of Legends ad, or without getting a Dota form of ad. And it's like, why, when the game's finally at a great balance, why was there not a single dime spent on marketing? And I think, and it could just be, again, I'm from a marketing background, so that's the first thing that I think of is that, but I just saw Warframe where it's like, this is a game that essentially died out and then came back and now is constantly competing with Destiny, beats Destiny most days in viewership, or
which
some
is,
days in viewership.
Which is insane. I mean, it's totally crazy.
And it's like, and this game's just been going on forever. And it's like, and it started out like, you could ask anyone that played Warframe in the beginning, and they're like, it was a pile of trash. Like, it was a terrible game. And every single month they were making an improvement on it, all the way up until I think most people said around patch 14, they were like, this game is the best. And like patch like 11 through 14, they were like, the improvements were so massive that you could do whatever you wanted to in this. And it was just such a fun game. And that's when they started just loading up with marketing. And like, I'll get ads for Warframe now. And it's like, even they know when to spend their marketing. Don't spend it while your game just looks like a cheaper version of League of Legends and Dota. But right as you get the polish down, right as they got everything fixed, then start spending money on marketing. And I think that was the issue is, I don't think they were too late. Like, look at League and Dota. They're still successful and people are still quitting those games, you know? And all you have to do is be there to pick up the people that are quitting. Like, even like World of Warcraft, like people are still going back to World of Warcraft. Were they late? Were they early? I mean, let's look at, I guess, Final Fantasy 14 is a good example of someone who's really late to the party. all the MMOs dropped, right? Every single MMO dropped. You had World of Warcraft, you had whatever the Lord of the Rings one was, whatever the Dungeons and Dragons one was, whatever the literally I could go down the Rift, Star Wars, all of those, they all dropped within like the specific window. And then World of Warcraft and a couple others came out, and then whatever happened. Final Fantasy 14 came out so late. They failed the first time.
That's true.
They rebirthed. They rebirthed. They came back. Look at it. It's got almost as much viewership as World of Warcraft yesterday.
Yeah, it beats World of Warcraft on some days.
I'm like, the game's like working well. Every day I'm sitting here going, man, if I didn't need to buy all these expansions, I might be playing this game right now.
Yeah.
And then they came out with a Humble Bundle the other day, and it was like every expansion and the new one and the base game for like $50. And I was like, do I get this? I'm like, do I even have time to play this?
Yeah, the time commitment for MMOs is
like,
the real barrier.
That's my problem. Is I'm like, I don't think I have the time to actually play this, but I'm like, I would do this, even though this game was way late to the party. And I think that's the problem. Is people, they see a lot of times what they want to see, right? They see, and I'm doing the same, right? I'm seeing the success stories. And that's survivor's bias, right? Survivor's bias is you see all the success stories, but forget all of the failures. But I think a lot of people are so focused on the failures, all these ones that came late to a party and then failed. But in reality, it's like all it takes is a little bit of TLC and marketing, and this game could have been just as popular still. But I don't know.
Yeah, because it was definitely different enough. Like, Here's the Storm comparatively. You look at League of Legends and Dota. I mean, they have a very similar formula, it seems like. HOTS was like really like the outlier. And it's way more fun, I think.
Oh, yeah. Like, I quit League for like two reasons. One is because I was getting annoyed at CSing. It just seemed like something that was like, oh, you can show you're slightly better than your lane opponent, right?
Yeah.
But it took up like a huge portion of the game. Like, you could even watch like a competitive game today and go watch League, and they're CSing for the first 10 minutes of the game without anything major happening unless the jungler shows up.
Right.
And it's like, that's pretty insane to be burning 10 minutes out of that. And then like team fights really don't happen. Like, you might have a small one around like the first dragon. Other than that, team fights don't really happen for about 30 minutes into the game. And it's just crazy. It's like you literally won't see a team fight, and they're done like that. Like you literally will have like one person, you'll have a LeBlanc or something that'll literally just one shot two people on their team, boom, team fight's over. And then like everyone's sitting there going, okay, well, one team rolls over the next. And that's just kind of how it ends, is really fast. Is I feel like Here's the Storm team fights, it's less about like one person making one tiny mistake that ends the game, and it's more about like 5 people trying to punish a variety of mistakes happening over the course of a fight. And so the team fight, and they happen so much faster. I mean, 3 minutes into the game is when objectives spawn on almost every single map. Every single team fight map, except for one, all the objectives spawn at 3 minutes. And all the non-team fight maps like Braxis and Dragonshire, those spawn earlier, of course, because you're going to be split up during the beginning of the game. But Garden of Terror is the only team fight map that doesn't spawn at 3 minutes for whatever reason. Spawns at 2:30. I have no idea why. I don't know whose idea it was. I didn't know it until I was like coaching, and I was like, it's 2:30. I was like, it's like 2:25. You should start this camp because the objective spawns at 3. And then I like it hits 2:30 and the objective spawns, and I was like, wait a second. And I was like, why is it 2:30? It's so weird, but who knows?
I always felt that the shared experience kind of held HOTS back a little bit from like really exploding in popularity sense, and I personally like it more, especially nowadays. I don't want to spend, I think just like with HOTS, spending like 20 minutes in a game instead of 50 is a big reason why I enjoy the game so much, and it's quicker, like you said. But I feel like there's this ecosystem with like streaming and the pro scene with something like League and Dota, where especially younger kids really want that sense that they're carrying the game and that they are the highlight of the game and that they're doing the best. And HOTS didn't really give you that aspect. Or I mean, you can somewhat carry in HOTS, but
if you know the game well enough, then you know when people.
It just doesn't seem like it. You know, when people can't correlate the stats back to it as well.
Yeah, No, I feel you. I mean, like, I have a video that's like carrying the Grandmasters with Joanna, and there's a point in that video where someone even says to me in game, they're like, "Oh, you're a noob. You're not with the team." But like by the end of the game, I got our team 3-level lead, and we were like level 20 to 17, and just absolutely rolling over everyone. It's like if I was in league during that time, that would have been me playing something like Irelia and being like 3 levels ahead and just two-shotting everyone. It's two sides to the same coin almost, where there's, and I'm probably butchering the use of that saying, I don't know, but you can find ways to do it. It's just harder to see. And like you said, like you can pull up the score screen afterwards and go, see, I did 10,000 more experience contributed than the top person on their team. But at the same time, it's like that's as easy as saying, oh, I'm a level 18 Irelia while everyone else is level 15, and you're just rolling everyone by yourself. But yeah, I mean, that is definitely two differences in the games. Like, it is preference. The other downside of that, I guess, is like how much it hurts to see a level 18 Irelia on the enemy team when you're all level 15, even though you did your job. You're just not in a lane that you're in a lane that has to split experience. And that's kind of the hard part, is like, oh, well, they got fed because of one mistake on my team. And I feel like, well, HOTS, yeah, sure. I mean, one person making some mistakes can be bad, but I think they're trying to fix like the snowball of it, because if you get ahead in league, you can almost stay ahead the entire game, because you get a little bit of gold ahead and nobody can kill you anymore, and you're just two-shotting everyone. While in HOTS, it's like if you guys get ahead like level 10s to 9, you win the next objective. But outside of that, it's not very snowbally. I mean, you need to be there are definitely perks to getting advantages. So if you prefer the snowball, if you prefer to get advantages in the early game and be able to pull those on in the late game, no, definitely. Like, and I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. It's all preference, really. Yeah. Like, I like both games still. Like, I mean, I just barely started playing a little bit of League again, but I'm not planning on going competitive or even making videos for it. But it is fascinating to kind of go back to that and see the meta and how it's shifted since I haven't played in 4 years. While also still playing HOTS, and I also play some other competitive games. So it's just fun to see how these games shift and how they play differently.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'm with you, Matt, on that. It seems like the game has a lot to offer, and it seems like it in comparison to the other games in the genre, like Dota and League are like very similar in a lot of ways. I mean, Dota is a little bit more complex, but it seems like it has a lot to offer. And I get what you're saying, Matt. It's like, it doesn't have that like ego booster feeling to it, because you have to do it as a team in order to get that. And that kind of correlates with what you were saying earlier, Paradox, where you see a lot of people playing with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just strange to me that it never picked up. It's like, that's kind of how gamers are, maybe psychologically. Like, they want to play the game to be the best.
I think it's like, I don't want to like overvalue the streaming ecosystem and like people wanting to be huge on Twitch now, but it seems like everyone I speak to wants to be the next big Twitch superstar. And I can understand why. I think if I was like 14 or 15, I would want the same exact thing. Like 100%. I would be streaming every day, and I'd probably be playing something like League.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just don't think it's definitely not my cup of tea now at 28 years old.
Well, that's the thing with one of the podcasts. So we can get back to Here's the Storm, but that's one of the things with a couple podcasts ago, probably about 2 podcasts ago, we were talking about Twitch and how everybody wants to be the star. And that's why I keep on going back and say, like, well, I don't know, like, if that's necessarily a good thing. Everybody wants to have the best YouTube channel. Everybody wants to be a YouTuber and everything. It's like, you're really, it's really, and I don't, not being pessimistic, I feel like this is more like even keel realist. Like, you're most likely not going to succeed.
Sure.
You have to put so much time into it. You have to have so much consistency. You have to have a plan. You have to have goals. And like, a lot of these people who are trying this as a streamer or a YouTuber are young people. And it's like, you don't have the the skill set in order to accomplish those things. It's actually something that takes a lot of vision and a lot of drive to do. So that's one of the things in the previous podcast where we were kind of like, oh, what's happening? I'm like, whoa, I don't know if this is a good thing. A lot of people are going to be wasting their time and putting their eggs.
Well, the question I always ask is, if everybody's streaming, who the hell is watching the streams?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's the truth. I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, for your first 2 years, it's about like 33% creativity, maybe, I don't know, like 33% research and 33% effort, and like 1% is actually true enjoyment of it, right? Like you can have fun playing your game, but the aspect of streaming for most people isn't any more fun than just playing your game, unless you have like a huge following. But again, like I'm saying, the first 2 years, you have to be, it's all creativity. Like, you have to have a gimmick. I say this to a lot of people that were like hot streamers, and then they're like, oh, if I was a League streamer right now, I would be making big bucks. And it's like, I want to see you switch over to League and even get on the front page, because the front page is what, like the first 18 streams or whatever. I said the bottom one on League is still at 1,000 views. I said, you're at 30 views and you think you'll be bigger over at League. I said, I want you to go and do that and actually show me you can do that, because every single person I've seen switch from HOTS to League has ended up with way fewer views. People don't realize, like, they see bigger numbers and they think more people will watch them, but it's actually, you're just further from the top. And so everyone needs to have some weird gimmick to at least, if you're not the best player, you need some weird gimmick, right? And do whatever you want to do. I mean, if you want to be like the number one Genji player or whatever, then everyone who's interested in learning Genji is going to watch you until they've kind of watched you enough to where they're like, okay, I've learned enough on Genji. Then you have to have a personality that actually, or a gimmick or something going on that actually keeps them there. But if people aren't willing to put the research in to learn what people want to watch, if they're not willing to be creative, then you're taking that 33% effort, you're putting it 100%. You need to do way more. And even then, I see streamers who will stream 16 hours a day with 10 viewers and never get more viewers. And it's just, that's how it is. If you can't do something creative, which is like half the time when I'm streaming, I'm doing something unique, right? Like, I try to make it to where I'm either running a tournament that I've created myself, I've came up with a gimmick myself, I'm doing the prize pool myself, or I'm doing a like a coaching session where I do something specific. Or when I actually do stream Storm League, I'll do something that's like, oh, I'm teaching soul laners today, and I'll only play soul laners the entire day, and I'll whatever people ask questions about. It's like, you try to have a gimmick, and even then, even with all of that, it's like you're still competing with people who have been there for so much longer than you. People that have built up such a longer following. So many other factors are going in that you could be as creative, you could throw as much effort in. That last 1%, well, I said it was enjoyment. I'd say is luck, honestly, because if you do get lucky, you're in there, honestly. Like, if you're the first person to stream a popular game, or if you're the best person at a popular game, you're done. Like, it's over. If you're the best person at an unpopular game, good for you. I mean, like, cool.
Yeah, which is a shame, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know what? There was a map on what game was that? It was a Mario Kart DS that my name was number 1, and underneath it was 199 Japanese characters. It was literally one American flag with like a name, and then it was literally just Japanese characters all the way down. And I was like, all
right.
There's my bragging rights. No, it's just it's a lot harder. And even on YouTube, like, if you don't do the research and learn what actually is successful, you're just gonna you're gonna put way too much effort and time into videos that are never going to grow. Right. And so I think for so many people, it's rough. It's like it's mostly research, honestly. In my opinion, it's mostly research and creativity. And if you can get that.
I think you're right with creativity. I've always looked at it as like a real. I think people have a branding issue And I think that's probably what you mean with creativity. I think that it's probably just like a difference in terminology between you and I, but I think that people just don't know how to brand. And they think that they're just going to get on, and they probably don't do the research like you're saying, but they just get on and they think they're just going to like have fun and have a jolly good old time with like their 4 viewers, and it's just not going to work. 100,000 people are doing that every day, probably more than that. You're just never going to get noticed unless you put the research in it and do the branding.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do this thing where I don't know if you can still do it, but I used to do this thing where I'd type in like a subject and I would sort only by the new videos being released. And even with like Heroes of the Storm, when I was looking at it like 2 years ago, there was a video coming out like every other minute. And it's like you just can't, like you have to find a way to break through that and get people to watch it. And a lot of times I try to show people like their own videos, and I just say, would you actually watch this? You know, like would you watch your own content? Because like if I'm trying to learn a game, the first thing I'm going to be looking up is what is the best person doing on that hero. Then I'm going to watch what can I actually do, since I can't actually do what he does. So what is like the easier way to do that? So I'll look up like easy builds, that I'll look up people that maybe weren't the highest rank, but people that are like really high up. I'll look at people that are like one tricks, or I'll look at like, I try to look at guides that are like shorter videos, but then like if I like the person's content or if I like how they have it set up, then I'll watch like a longer version of theirs. And it's like I try to find people that have voices that can be understood really easily. I try to work to talk slower, and then people always make jokes. They're like, oh, if you're watching NotParadox video, all you have to do is turn the speed to 1.5. And I'm like, I get it, but I'm trying to talk slow because I have people from Europe. I have people from like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like there's so many things to it, but I think the biggest thing that like my first warning that I say to a lot of people that want to do this is I said, I could probably tell you how to do it and the entire process on how to do it with any game out there. I said, but one, you probably won't want to do what I ask. And two, do you want to turn your game, your favorite hobby, into work?
Right.
Yep.
And usually that's the biggest thing for me anyways, is like there's several times I've been burned out from Heroes of the Storm where it's like I just don't want to play the game anymore, because every time I play the game I'm like, oh, this game, like if I don't get the hero I don't want, even if I win, I can't use it for a video. And then it's like, so even my wins feel bad. And then my losses, I can't use it for a video, even if I got the hero I did want. So it's like wins and losses feel bad. All the thing feels like time wasted if I don't get what I want. And it's like, so there's some times where everything I do on HOTS feels like work. Now there's other times where I'll just play for like an entire day and not care about videos at all. And I enjoy every minute of it, even the losses. So it's like, I have my ups and my downs, but when it feels like work, I mean, you almost have no escape anymore, because it's like you want to escape to your hobby to get away from work. And it's kind of like you imagine going to work after getting off of work. You know, it's like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I feel like that's no. I've been feeling the same.
Too
thing.
much work.
This is episode what? 29 of the show. So like we really haven't been doing this show for a long time, but we try to do it every single week. And like there are some days I go to type up the outline, or I'm looking for trending news stories to put in, and I am just like, oh my god, not again. Like not this week, please. But I mean, you have to do it anyway, right? I mean, you just get it done. But it's like it's rough.
It's rough. So I think that's usually what I tell people that want to be like big streamers, big YouTubers. I'm like, I could write you a book that's the exact things you need to do. I said, but one, you're not going to want to do half the things that are in there. And I said, and two, it's going to make your favorite hobby, your de-stressor, is going to be your stressor. And I said, if you're willing to do both of that, like I'll put it all in a pretty package, give it to you, and you go for it. But it's rare that anyone's willing to do what you need to do. And most people just don't think, like, they think if they just stream all the time, they'll grow. It's like you need to either be the best or you need to have some gimmick.
Yep.
So I think just to switch gears here a little bit and just to take us back to HOTS, what, like, if you guys have a chance to just play HOTS, I think for fun, like, or Paradox, like when you're not making content around it, like, what champions do you guys find yourself playing, that you're having a lot of fun with right now? I know, like, ever since the competitive scene kind of dropped off, I've actually liked HOTS more now, because I just jump in a quick match and, like, I really don't care how I'm doing. I mean, I like it more whenever I win or I'm doing well personally, but, like, I've been playing the shit out of Artanis. I can't get enough of the guy. I play 15 games a day with him sometimes. I'm sure, like, Adam can attest to that. It's, like, literally all I play.
Yeah, every single day.
Artanis.
We'll play like 4 or 5 games. He's Artanis every time. But then
same build.
Yeah.
I love it. I get in there. I get the cooldown. I get the cooldown on the Q. I get the extra damage on the Q. I get Blades of a Templar at 16 for the slow and the attack speed. Like, I am just brawling everybody every second of the match.
Yeah, and then I get to pair it with Illidan, who is just fucking god awful in quick match 99% of the time. But I still have a blast every time I play it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then that's when I play Arthas against you guys.
Yeah, right. And
then we log off immediately.
We're not doing draft.
Yeah.
Just quick match.
No, I don't know. I get on kicks like based on builds. Like I'll find like a random build that I'll just be like, oh, this is really fun, and then I'll play it. Like I had like this whole day where I was just playing like Rexar, and I just go on Q build, and Q's just like throw the little bird, right? It's not very exciting. Most people go something related to the bear. Oh, we have a flaming bear. Oh, we have a bear that stuns all the time. We have a bear that can solo bosses. It's like, no, don't get me wrong. It's like, those are all fun. I said, but when you can throw a little bird out and then you can attack faster than Zul'jin, I'm like, now that's pretty fun. So I do that. Like,
thinking, man, I want to try that out now.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. The build comes online about level 13 because you get a talent that's like, if you hit someone with a Q, your attack speed's increased by 125%, and it's crazy. But no, I go on kicks.
You get the boars with that, obviously.
Yeah, I almost always go boars just because it's like a really cool, like, because normally you're in the soul lane and then like your team is just kind of doing whatever, and then I always like to just flank with the boars because it's such a huge ult that like out of nowhere all these boars just start like running down from top lane and everyone's like, oh, I don't know what to do. So like if you're on like Braxis and then you flank them with boars, like you wipe their entire team. But yeah, I get on like kicks with certain heroes. Like right now I think my favorites probably Anduin, only because like it just feels so good to like have like Garrosh throw someone on your team and you're just like, oh, he's back, he's mine now, and you just pull one of your team members back, and it's so funny because like you feel like your team makes this huge mistake and they're going, oh, why did I do that? And then they're saved and they're like, oh, thank you, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's just really cool. That leap of faith is so much fun. So I think Anduin's probably like my kick right now. Is I've just been playing a bunch of him, but I get on like little kicks where I get like super excited to play like one character all the time. Combustion Blaze is always like a guilty pleasure though. It's just like tossing oil everywhere.
Nobody plays him anymore.
Yeah, I don't see much Blaze.
I'm known for in MOBAs. I'm notorious for picking the most useless character.
That's very true. That's very true.
So I like, since Rexar has been, he's actually pretty decent now. But remember when he was complete garbage? That I would play him all the time. And Murky, of course, on like quick match where you can get like a small map and he's totally useless. But I just the reason I like Murky is it's just he's such a troll, you know what I mean? Like he just
hey, he's like a little pest.
It's so fun. It's so fun because like it's like you're not doing anything, but by the end of the game, like you could potentially be the reason that you're winning because of an XP lead or
he's
making them run around for like a half an hour chasing you, if they're stupid enough to just try to kill you repetitively.
He's one of those like weird little quirky things about HOTS that kind of drew me in initially when you compare it to like League and Dota and stuff like that. I mean, you have Murky, you have like the Lost Vikings, you have Cho'Gall, you got like some really interesting
Abathur,
right? I mean, if you want to play like a top-down RTS for like the whole game, like you have that option to play one of these guys where you're just kind of, I don't know, like autopilot there.
Yeah, I was super roped in. I got into HOTS because Dave introduced me to HOTS. I was a big League guy, but Li Ming had just been released. and it was like the first hero that I had bought and I was really playing. And Dave was playing Rhaegar, and he had the self heal. And this was, I mean, he has a self heal now too, but they took it away from him for a little while.
Yeah.
But before, it was like broke. Rhaegar was so strong, and Li Ming came out, and the damage that she was doing was insane. And she used to have the mana regen talent was at 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as it would go less than 50, you'd start like getting that faster mana regeneration. You wouldn't run out of mana. I think how many games did we win in a row, Dave, in quick match? Like 33?
We won like 33 games in a row.
Yeah, and I like didn't even know what I was doing. It was so much fun, and we played HOTS like ever since that. It was great.
And you can't forget when she released, she had a talent called S of Johan. Do you remember what that did?
Yep. It pulled in everybody towards the W.
Pulled in everyone. So if you threw your W in the same direction as your Q, you would always hit your W, which would pull everyone in, and then your Q would hit all of the Qs on one target. And
I totally forgot about that, man. That's hilarious. Yeah, no wonder I was so good on her. You couldn't miss. It pulled everybody into your shit. Yeah.
Some of the heroes on release were just bonkers. Hold up, I think some of the heroes on release were just bonkers. Like Kael'thas had a whole bunch of like weird things. Like he had the ignite that he has right now, that talent, where your Q, if it hits someone, it applies a bomb, right? That used to apply to everyone hit by Qs, including minions. And so what people would do, and there was another thing that if you applied a bomb to someone who already had a bomb, it would instantly blow up. So what people would do is they would apply a bomb to a middle of a minion wave that's around like a couple heroes, and then they would throw their Q, and it would go apply a bomb to every single person in that minion wave, and every minion, every hero, everything.
Holy shit.
One minion would have already had a bomb. That bomb will blow up because it triggered a second bomb, killing all of the minions, blowing up all of their bombs at the same time, spreading all of their bombs and blowing up all of their bombs while also hitting. And remember, it's going to apply another bomb to all those heroes, which is then going to pop all of their bombs at once. So if you could catch a hero in the middle of a minion wave on old Kael'thas, you would always kill any amount of heroes that was in a minion wave. So everyone that would go against a Kael'thas would always have to stay away from every minion wave. It's just like it was impossible.
I don't know. That's
just kind of a hard way to play the game.
I would have remembered that shit.
There's a lot of like weird stuff. And like Zarya came out, she was like really, really weak, and then they overtuned her to the point that like she could not die. And there's a lot of weird ones on release that just like, it's tricky. I mean, as someone who like will go on PTR and give some feedback here and there, it's hard because you don't get to play the heroes that much because there's no incentive to play other heroes. And I think that's something that would be such an easy change. Is like if you play on PTR and you play whatever the non-hero is, I think they should give out like a huge bonus of gold to your main account. So we could get like actually testing these heroes. But I mean, that's a random change that
cool idea
won't ever be implemented because nobody cares about the PTR, and I don't really whatever. It's fine.
How did
I
you
go
feel
on the PTR? But yeah,
how did you feel about Kira coming out? It's something that we just talked about. Was it our last week's show or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. But and just not even just Kira, but like the community's reaction to it as well. I know it's something that I was pretty hard on the show, and it's still something that I'm not really sure if I liked or not with that original hero release, but I think I'd like to get your thoughts there. Yeah, I'd just like to hear what you think of that.
So I mean, I've never really been one for like already existing characters. Like I guess for me that was never a really big like sticking point for me for Heroes of the Storm. I played Heroes of the Storm for the mechanics of the game. I played it for the strategy. I played it for that. I didn't really care. I mean, half the StarCraft characters they brought in, I have no idea who they are, but some of them are still some of my favorite heroes, you know? I forgot like Firebats. They're not even Firebats. What is Blaze? I didn't even remember that those were in the game. And I love playing Blaze. So for me, I never really cared. I mean, like, I know people were saying that, they were like, oh, well, her kit could have worked on Harrison Jones. And I was like, I could see that, right?
I didn't hear that. Yeah, I guess that's true.
I'm like, I could see that. But at the same time, I wouldn't care either way. If it was Harrison Jones or if it was Kira, I legitimately wouldn't care either way. And that's where, as far as the Nexus Born hero thing, if they're not going to really play it up by making some like story mode, which we know they're not,
Right.
I don't really care if they bring out any more, but at the same time, I don't really care if they don't bring out heroes, because I was never attached to Harrison Jones. I was never attached to any of these characters. Like, half of them that they bring out aren't characters that we're like really following. Like, they're not. And some of the ones that people ask for are like such major side characters that like one of the most requested StarCraft heroes right now is Mangst. I'm like, I don't even know who Mangst is. And like it's just kind of, it's weird. And like the most requested Warcraft hero is Deathwing, and I'm like, Deathwing was the size of a map.
Yeah.
Like you literally fought you literally fought a raid boss on his back. Like you killed creatures on his back. You had to get on a giant flying ship, which was the size of a map, just to fight this dragon. And I'm like, I can't see him as a hero, but I don't care if they release him. I'll be like, all right, whatever. Let's see what his kit's like. You know, it doesn't really bother me. As far as Kira's kit, I think it's really, really fun. I think it's interesting. Sure, she might be a little overtuned, but we'll see a balance patch most likely next week. I don't know. I mean, she's easily countered, and like in higher ranks, she does get countered pretty good, but she's a little punishing. I mean, I think Fan said that he feels like she's like Illidan, where like if the player that's playing them is a significantly higher rank than everyone else around them, they're gonna feel like she's absolutely unkillable. And it's kind of the same way with Illidan. Like if you have an Illidan that's like plat going against like silvers, they're gonna feel like Illidan's the most overpowered hero in the game, right? Just because he's hopping around, dodging all of their attacks, healing up all the damage that he's taken, and then he's got globals, he's taking camps, he's everywhere and nowhere. You know, he's just one of those heroes. And it's the same thing with Kira. Is like she heals a decent amount, but it's not an overwhelming amount. Like I think in best case scenario, she can heal about 50% of her health once with her W, and that's it. And then once her W is on cooldown, like she just dies. But I think a lot of people, they'll see her heal like 50% of her health and they're like, oh my gosh, we can't kill her. It's like, no, right after she heals that, like she has nothing left, just kill her. The other thing is like people aren't really abusing her for using her swing. Like I watched low ranks, and like she'll swing around people and they don't know what to do, and they start like running around. And it's like, if you always just run back, she'll always land in the middle of your team. And so it's like you can always just run back. So a lot of people in higher ranks are getting punished by it so much, they're just instantly pressing the stuns. So they'll hit them with the chain, instead of swinging, they just immediately stun, because it's like it's too risky to swing.
Gotcha. So
I think people will get used to her, but it's like, will she be nerfed before people get used to her? I don't know, because what's going to happen, I'm kind of predicting that what's going to happen is that she's going to be nerfed hard, and then people are going to get used to her, and she's going to have like a 30% win rate, and then they're going to end up buffing her back up again. That's probably what's going to end up happening. But I think it's like the opposite of what's going to happen to Chen. Like Chen, people didn't know how to play him outside of the competitive scene, so his win rate was still really low after rework, but he was actually just busted, and then they buffed him, and I'm like worried that they're just going to nerf him now, you know, because it's like he's still really strong. So, but I think that's probably what's going to happen with Kira, is once people get used to her, she's also going to get nerfed, and she'll just be kind of out.
Yeah, I was one of those people playing against her the first time. I was like, what the hell is happening right now? I saw that heal. I think I was actually playing Illidan at the time, and I don't even think I was like doing any damage to her. And I was like, all right, I'm done with this. We're done here.
Oh yeah.
It was one of our Illidan Genji combo games.
Right.
That did not work.
It seems to be a trend with assassin characters that like fall into that. Like Maiev was kind of like that too at first. She was like super, everybody wasn't used to her like jumping around and shit. And
I will say with Maiev though,
to shit.
Yeah, she did actually deserve that. But part of her problem, I don't know if you guys know, she was actually supposed to be a bruiser. Her whole kit was supposed to be a bruiser, and they couldn't figure out if they wanted to make her a bruiser or an assassin. So they kind of play tested her with both, and they accidentally left her as a bruiser. Well, it was called a warrior at the time. They left her as a warrior when they initially released her, even though they intended her to be an assassin, because they tested her with both. They just found that it was too busted to have someone with that much CC also be tanky, even if they did no damage. It was just too busted. Yeah, so then they were like, they were like, all right, we'll make her an assassin, and now that's like her downside. She has an amazing engage, she's got a decent amount of damage, but like she has no self healing, and now she has no armor. But when she released, she had 10 armor flat, and she could get up to 50 armor with talons, and it was just like insane.
Yeah, she's really bad now, man. I never see people playing her.
That's a thing that's kind of interesting about her, though, is like, I mean, she certainly seems really bad, but in competitive, she's actually like really scary. Like, she's one of the best engages in the game. And she also is one of the few heroes that can that can solo a bruiser camp at level 1. Yeah, you pick up Nyasha's Memento at level 1, which makes it to where your auto attacks bounce, and you can do a bruiser camp level 1. If you're not comfortable with it, you hit a fountain first. So like Dragonshire, for example, the fountain's right next to the bruiser camp, and literally like if you start, and not just that, on that particular map, say the enemies have like an Imperious or something, it takes Imperious like 2 minutes to deal with a bruiser camp. So if you can get a camp at level 1 as bruiser camp at level 1, you pretty much won like the entire game if they don't send someone up there to get it. Because if they have like an Imperious or someone who just can't deal with solo, like a Chen or an Imperious who just can't deal with a camp that early, like you pretty much just won the game, which is kind of cool. But it's rare. So like outside of like her and Rhaegar, you can't really do that. But Rhaegar can do it level 2.
That's interesting what you said about the self-healing, like being a deterrent from playing her right now, because I consider myself a bit of a Greymane connoisseur. Probably to everybody else's dismay in this party, but I find him really, really hard to play right now. I used to play him a ton when he was like super in the meta, and he was like first picked like every single time in the competitive scene. When was this? Like a year ago, guys? Like when we were really playing heavily? About a year ago. And I can't do anything on him now. I get into team fights and I am just dead. I go wolf form, like Worgen form, and like I die immediately. Yeah. And I think it's because I have no sustain. I can't do anything.
So I will say that when he was like a first pick in the meta, it was during a really weird time where physical damage was kind of like missing. So a lot of people were stacking a bunch of spell armor, and there was also tanks that had spell armor. Like base kit, like I want to say a Nubarok, Tyrael, and one other had spell armor baseline, and it was really a weird time. He has gotten buffs. He is still like he is a very strong pick on a lot of maps right now. He doesn't have sustain. I guess the hope is that when you're with the 4-man, you should have a healer with you. If you're playing quick match and you don't get a healer, there's a lot of people that are going to feel bad. A lot of heroes that feel bad for sure. Like I'll watch sometimes people send me a coaching in quick match, and I'm like it's up to RNG at this point. You're coming down to the gods, you know. I mean,
don't get us started on RNG.
He sent me this one time where like one team got a Varian and one team didn't. The Varian went taunt, and they had a tank and we didn't. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like that's quick match. But yeah, it's Greymane's really strong right now. He also does camps really fast. He can do him as well. He can do a bruiser camp level 2.
Yep.
And usually you hit level 2 before 1 minute when the camps actually spawn, outside of very rare maps. So you can get a bruiser camp. I played with this guy for a long time that his strategy was always get the enemy's bruiser camp at 1 minute, because they never went there. So every single game we played, he would get the enemy's bruiser camp 1 minute into the game. And like no one ever punished him for it. We played against the same people like 3 times, and they still never checked the bruiser camp. I'm like, he ends off the bruiser camp at like 2 health every single time. I'm like, you could be a Joanna, walk up and just do 1 shield glare and it'd be dead. It's like, it's always funny. But yeah, that's some strategies. Greymane's got a bunch of like weird strategies. He also has some pretty cool builds, I think, because like he has really cool talents, I would say.
Like, I think it's the quick match effect that's really doing me in.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I go up against like 5 other assassins and I just can't stick.
Yeah, I mean, outside of doing like a 100 to 0, you like bullet and then you throw a cocktail and then you jump into wolf form and then use a Q and an auto attack in wolf form. Outside of that, I wouldn't you're not going to have a lot of fun against other assassins.
I think to wrap up this conversation, just kind of like this might be a tough question for you to answer, but do you see HOTS being relevant down the road? Like where do you see HOTS going like over the next couple years? And I think just you personally, like as a follow up to that question, do you you had said that you do have plans to make other content for other games. I mean, when do you plan on making that switch over? And if you do switch to something else, do you still plan on sticking with HOTS for a long time? Or
yeah, I mean, I'll start in reverse. I'll answer these in reverse, anyways. I'm probably gonna be making content for other games over the next couple weeks, probably. But at the same time, making HOTS content as well. It's just primarily I'm also playing other stuff. I'm trying to get. I'm trying to look at more of like a variety thing and get back to psychology as well. And that's kind of the major reason why is I want to really look at like esports psychology. So because there's other scenes that have more esports, I want to look at that. It's not necessarily because like I don't like HOTS anymore. I still love HOTS. It's just that's kind of where I want to go with my own career. So probably next few weeks, I'd imagine, is I'll start messing around with other stuff. As far as where HOTS is going to go, it really comes down to what they plan on doing other than just new heroes. I think new heroes bring everyone back temporarily. Not everyone, but I think new heroes bring back a lot of people temporarily. And that's it. I think events like again bring back maybe a few people temporarily, but do you really care about skins or sprays for a game that you don't play all the time? Not really. So why would that bring you back? You know, like Guild Wars 2, for example, like that's a game that I go back to here and there, and people message me and they'll be like, oh, there's this event, it's the only time you can get this particular mount skin, and so you should come back for this. And I'm like, I don't play enough to even care about that mount skin. When I come back, I'm going to come back because I want to play World v World, like, and that's it. Like I won't even be using any of those mounts anyways, because the one in World v World is different. And so it's like I don't feel bad missing out on those. And I think that's the problem with HOTS as well, is like no one really feels bad about missing out on those except for the people that are already committed to the game. And new heroes are the only thing that might bring people back temporarily. They come back and they're like, oh, is this hero fun? Like same with Overwatch. Like I play it on and off and it's like, oh, there's a new hero, Sigma. It's like, hey, he looks really cool, I'm gonna go play him. And that's about it. Like people just go to check out whatever the new thing is, and then right as they get bored of the hero, they're like, oh, he was fun, and they leave again. What I think HOTS needs is honestly, I think it comes down to this. I really, really do. I think they need a new mode. And I know people say every time with new modes it splits the player base, but honestly, player base is dwindling. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still get fast queues and all that, and new heroes do keep bringing people back, but it's like we need something new that reinvigorates everyone who was like, oh, I'm not sure about HOTS, I played it in the past. I want to be able to tell my friend like for example, I've got this friend I used to play with all the time when HOTS was in alpha and beta, and like we played all the time. And when 2.0 came out, I'm like, oh, you can come back and get a whole set of heroes. He came back and he played for a while, and we played for a good amount. Excuse me. Now every time that I try to bring him back, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm playing HOTS. He's like, anything new? And I'm like, well, there's new heroes. And he's like, oh, okay. And that's all it ever is. It's like I want to be able to tell him like, hey, there's this whole new mode, like StarCraft 2, for example. I was like, hey, you want to play StarCraft 2? There's a new co-op mode, and I said like, there's a whole progression system. You get new units, you get new talents, you get all this cool stuff. And he's like, oh, cool, I'll try it out. And like we played StarCraft 2, and he got all of the free heroes up to level 15. And it's like that's a good chunk of time played into a game that he never liked StarCraft. He bought StarCraft 2 for the custom games, and when they came out, they were okay. But like I was able to bring him back because of the co-op, and it's like I feel like that's what HOTS really, really needs. And I've said this on probably 30 podcasts now, to be honest. And I've done it in like interviews with people, and it's like they need a mode that can bring a new set of people or a old people back to the game or something. Like I feel like we're just getting all the same things over and over and over and over, and it's like to the point where unless a new hero joins that like you try it out and that just is your favorite play style and you're going to stick with the game from that point on, Kira's I think one of those heroes that could bring in a couple people that play from this point on playing only Kira, but that's pretty rare. Like one of my favorite heroes in out of every game was Malzahar, and it's like that didn't even keep me in that game. Like, didn't even keep me in that game. I could play Malzahar every single day, 30 games in a row.
One of Matt's.
I love Malzahar, yeah.
Yeah, I could play him, like, and his lore was cool. Like, everything about him was so cool.
I mean, he looks pretty cool, too.
And everything. Awesome. His design, his skins are so cool. Like, everything about Malzahar is so cool. His abilities had really cool things. Like, I remember there was this one game where I had everything planned out where... if you guys don't know how like one of his abilities work, he has a damage over time that bounces whenever a minion dies, and if it times out before the minion dies, it doesn't bounce. And I had it planned out. We were like fighting at the end of the thing, and I had one E where I was getting it on one side of the minion waves, and I was kiting them, and I had one of my minions tanking it. I had another E on another one. And I got them both to bounce to two separate different heroes. And then I put down my E on one and tossed down a W. And I literally had damage over times on like their entire team and melted down their entire team. And it's like, there's so many cool things you could do with them. And it's like, am I still playing that game just for that hero? No. And if League keeps bringing out heroes, I don't care because I'm not playing that game. They brought out a hero that works a little bit like Abathur, and I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to try this out. And I'm like, that was okay. And then I stopped playing it. It's like, that's the problem with all of these games is they need to bring in something that interests a new crowd.
Yeah.
Why did everyone in the HOTS community re-download League of Legends a month ago? Do you guys know why?
Oh, I know why.
Team fight tactics.
Team fight tactics.
Amazing,
okay, so did we. And okay, I for one, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's like the most addictive game I've played in 2 years. Dave just got it. I watched Dave play, like just watched him play. I didn't play at all for like 5 hours. We were up until like 2:30 in the morning, and I had one hell of a work day the next day. But it's the best.
It's unbelievable to me that we've seen this how many times in the past where StarCraft, they bring out co-op mode, they get a whole new set of people. Then you have League of Legends, Dota, they bring out auto chess, they get a whole new set of people.
Yep.
How do we keep seeing this? And then we look at Here's a Storm and go, everyone else is having the same problem. People are leaving, and it's hard. It's very cost inefficient to advertise to bring back people to a game that they're already like not worried about. But then you bring out a new mode, all these people are playing it. I think that's what HOTS needs. Like, if I could say it a million times, I'd say it a million times. I know they don't have the dev power or whatever, but it's like, okay, well, when Warcraft Reforged is completed, they're all on like a very similar engine. Move all those over to HOTS really quick and go, let's get an auto chest busted out. You know, let's just bust one of these things out really fast. We'll have Reforged, and then we can go back to Reforged and do some like updates or whatever. But for now, it's like Reforged is a done game. Once that thing's done, it's like you have to do some bug fixes and all that, but they don't need to do anything with it. It's a remake. So other than fixing bugs, the game is in its finished state.
Right.
And so it's like, where are they all going to go? Well, they're all going to go back to like World of Warcraft and Overwatch and Hearthstone. But it's like, if you could just have them take a quick detour, make a quick auto chess, and then send them over to wherever they're going, see if it works. I don't know. There's one of the developers for the Dota Underlords, I believe is what it's called. He said he made the whole game in a week.
Wow.
He literally said, he was one of the devs. He's like, yeah, he goes, we saw that auto chess on the Dota, they were trying to make another game to get it off of our system. And he goes, and our management came to us and said, hey, we would like to make our own auto chess because they're going to start sending over to like other places. We already know they're going to send over to other places. They're going to make a mobile and go to Epic. And we're like, so we should start working on that. And the guys, or we should start like talking about it. And before the next meeting, he had already built the entire game using assets that were already in there. And he's like, yeah, he goes, it's pretty straightforward. He goes, everything was already in there. He's like, all we had to do is make some synergies, move things around, create a grid that everything played on, made a little bit of AI to where they actually went to the grids they needed. He's like, It didn't take very long at all. Was barely an inconvenience. Like literally, like just took a week out of his schedule. Took
We
his
have the
vacation time.
technology.
Like, and it's like we have that, and it's just we just have, again, Warcraft Reforged, take a detour over and just go do, literally just go make a quick auto chess. I don't know. It's just another mode. I would take a co-op mode too. Story modes, not so much, only because story modes, you do it once and then you leave and you're done. Something with a progression system that's a new mode with a progression system would be great. I mean, even custom, like even if they just adapted the customs to where they're more integrated. Like I had this idea. So I did this game mode a while back where I took everyone's damage and increased it by 300%, and I took everyone's damage taken and increased it by 300%, so everyone was taking like 900% damage. And I was like, let's all just play whatever we want to play and see like what's the scariest. And I played Ana, and when I was playing Ana, I was literally one-shotting people. And it was like the funniest thing ever. Like I went Eye of Horus, and it was just like ping, something was dead, ping, something was dead, ping, something was dead. I'm like, this is the funniest thing. Like it was so much fun. And then I was like, man, that would be cool if we could do like a sniper and spotter where we have like a Rhaegar, because he has a bunch of like totems and vision mechanics. Like level 4, he has an extra totem. Level whatever, he's got an extra totem. Level 7, he has Farsight. And we have sniper and spotter. So there's two Anas sitting in base, and they're both like Eye of Horus sitting in base with all their stats just maxed. And then you have two Rhaegars trying to find the other Rhaegar. And so, and like they're just putting totems out and they're using Farsight and all that. And then I'm like, but I need to make this more interesting. They have to have something or else they're all going to hide in base, right? Like, so I have to find a way to make this more interesting. So I was trying to combine it with certain maps that might have cool mechanics, and I forgot what map I was trying to use it on, and it didn't have a what is that called? A sandbox mode. So sandbox mode is only on Cursed Hollow and Volskaya. And I'm like, this sniper spotter wouldn't work on Volskaya because you'll know where they are. It might work on Cursed because, but you get vision when people try to channel one of the things. So I can't remember what map it was, but I had a map for it. And it's like, if they would just open up more for us to do with this, we could make our own modes, you know? I had another one that was like protect the president. It was like Stukov. And so Stukov would be the president.
There's this creativity coming out.
Yeah, and you'd have 4 people that would try to protect the Stukov, and this was on Cursed Hollow. And on this one, Stukov was the only one who could actually capture the point. And the whole goal was whoever could kill the Stukov won the game. And so your thing was you were trying to protect it while he was channeling the points. And then we made like different adjustments and stuff. Like we sped up the entire game really fast, so it wasn't just as easy for people. Like everything was going crazy. I think one time we ran Protect the President, we had no cooldowns and no mana costs. And it's just stuff like that that's kind of fun. But again, it's like we're so limited. Like Overwatch made like they opened it up to where like you could do anything that the devs were allowed to do. And so people have like there's one whole game mode that someone made that's like Pokemon in Overwatch, and it's like there's all this craziness that's going on. And it's like, why couldn't we have that in HOTS? You know, there's so many missed opportunities that all the other Blizzard games are doing cool stuff, all the other MOBAs are doing cool stuff, and we're sitting over here and it's just like, oh, new hero. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for every new hero. It's fun. It is fresh for the game, new metas, new balance changes, but man, does it feel like there's so many missed opportunities.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I think the story of just the game itself it's kind of like one big missed opportunity, it feels like. So maybe it is kind of fitting. But I just wanted to say thank you again, Paradox, for coming on. But I think before we wrap, I mean, that's all the major questions that I had. I mean, I don't know if like I glossed over anything that anybody else wanted to talk about, or any big question that you guys wanted to go over, but
no, I didn't get much of a response from Murky out of you. You kind of just left the Murky business where it was.
Oh, did you want to see my opinions of
Murky?
Oh no, it's gonna be bad. No, I mean I'm a firm believer that like you can get any hero in the game to grandmasters, honestly. I just think that like I don't have a lot of opinions about heroes that aren't being played in the competitive scene. Like if you watch a lot of my videos, you're going to notice there's not a lot of Murky, there's not a lot of Nova, there's not a lot of these, because a lot of my builds are direct from the competitive scene. A lot of my stuff is from the competitive scene. I mean, I'll see people that'll say like, I don't agree with Paradox because of whatever build, and it's like a lot of times they're not my builds. They're builds that I've seen competitive players use, and they use a lot, and then I might just adapt it or adjust the playstyle a little bit. But generally, all my stuff's only competitive, which is why I usually don't have a lot of opinions about like Murky and Nova and all of those, unless they have like a really gimmicky thing that you can do in certain things. Like I know some of my friends played Murky all the time, and they do Murky and Phoenix, where Murky will lock someone down and Phoenix will planet cracker. And I just think it's such overkill for one person.
Yeah,
but it's always just like the greatest overkill. Like you literally lock someone down, you're slapping them with a fish, and like the slapping of the fish is doing nothing, while there's just a giant laser beam that's such overkill taking out one person. It's like they do that all the time, and I just think it's funny, but it's like it's just random,
not viable,
stuff like that. But yeah, I don't have too many. I think a lot of times I feel like he's easily countered. So like whenever I play like a solo lane and they throw like a Murky against me, I mean, you just kill his puffer fish and move on with your day. But but no, I mean, nothing too crazy with Murky. Again, I watch mostly competitives, and we don't see him too much. I mean, here and there. I mean, I Tempo Storm did sneak him out at BlizzCon, so so he got played. A little bit.
I didn't know that. That's really funny. But okay, Paradox, thank you again. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out Paradox, his YouTube channel is NotParadox, not to confuse you. But if you like MOBAs, or I think just the psychology behind how you can carry in games, or maybe how to have less toxicity in games, anything like that, I highly recommend checking him out. If you listen to this show on Spotify and iTunes or any of the other major podcast platforms, we put the live VODs on YouTube. Definitely check it out there, and hopefully we'll see you next week.